It's hard to find a quiet place to live in Paris. I had a tap dancer that was living above me. A tap dancer, a literal tap dancer. And amateur at best tap dancer, but try falling asleep with a tap dancer above you. Let me tell you, I was like throwing chairs at the ceiling.
Un joli garçon, une jolie fille. Paris, 1959. Une salle de sport, un réalisateur, une caméra, de la pellicule, un producteur.
I mean, but when you watch Slacker, you go, oh yeah, Rick was definitely inspired by Godard, but Rick and him are, yeah, very different filmmakers and human beings. And I luckily had a very different experience making this movie with Rick than Jean did with Godard. Both of my casting experiences with Richard Linklater were very unconventional, but I think that matches his style as a human and as an artist. But I had made a movie with Rick, Richard Linklater, about 11 years ago called Everybody Wants Some. And while we were making that movie, he very casually in passing mentioned that he was making a movie about the making of Breathless. And I don't think he used the words, you should play Jean Seberg, but he said, you have the same, you look like Jean Seberg. And I just, I took that as. And yeah, so that began our over a decade-long journey to get to work together again. Every time I saw him, I would sort of go, oh, and try to extract any information. But it didn't all start to really come together, and we didn't really start working on it together until about maybe 2 years before. Yeah, which was when I got a French tutor. When it actually became reality is when he said, okay, you can cut your hair. As you know, with independent movies, there's a million different factors at play, and there's always sort of a chance that things are going to fall apart. I think there's this assumption with auteur, great filmmakers that we love and admire, that they can just be like, hey, I want to make this movie, and it gets made. And that's just not the case. I mean, I was doing an interview with him yesterday, actually, and he was like, well, I'm sure if you're Spielberg or whoever, you can just get it. And I'm like, no, I think you always imagine or want to believe that there's someone who can just point their finger and like, this is going to get made, and it just happens. But I don't think it exists. I think it's always a struggle. And this was, a 15-year-long struggle for him, and it remained a struggle until, the very last amount of money that was needed was in the bank. So I say that it became really a reality when I cut my hair, because he was like, he didn't want me to chop off all my hair until he knew it was real. Being able to make a movie with someone who's your friend of 10 plus years, and it's not that there's a shorthand, but I think there's a trust. I was so happy to get to make a movie with him again when I felt like I knew myself a little bit more or a lot more. I was a teenager, and I was so scared and not present, and just wanted to not fuck it up, and to be able to enjoy it and learn, really watch and be present, and just know how lucky I was. That was cool. I feel really, really grateful for that. I think the hardest thing about finding my way into her was she energetically and in essence felt so different to me. And I didn't want to let Rick know that I felt that way. One, her physicality and her movement is very elegant and poised and still. And those are like all the opposite ways to describe me. There's a real mysterious quality to her, and I feel very unmysterious. So I think in terms of what was hard was where do I start with these things that feel like they don't feel tangible? How do you play mysterious? I wanted to rise to the occasion, and if he believed that I was the right person for it, then I trust that. You break down the character, and what's so cool, obviously, about playing a real human being is you have so much of the groundwork laid for you. When you're creating a character, that's not real. You're like, okay, let's start with memories and relationships and favorite color and favorite foods, and you're trying to build this whole world and mannerisms, and with this I had a lot of the pieces of the puzzle already, and then I just had to fill in the blanks. What's hard is the essence thing that I'm talking about. I think dropping into that, and I also think the language barrier of it all was the most helpful in that. I did not speak a word of French before I started preparing for this movie, and the fear that I was mispronouncing or misunderstanding or not hearing, I didn't want people to know that. So I think I converted that into trying to feel mysterious instead of like afraid. You create these defense mechanisms. So I felt united and kind of connected to her in the language barrier of it all, because she also was learning, Jean was also learning French when she was making Breathless. The movie and Godard talks a lot about freedom and feeling free. And I would always say, this is the least free I've ever felt making a movie in a great way. There were just all these awesome constraints. And like I said before, pieces of the puzzle that I had to maintain, that there was no room for any improv or any adding words or ums or this or that or physicality, things that I sort of do to make myself quickly feel real. I couldn't do any of that. For any of the scenes that we're recreating in Nouvelle Vague that were in Breathless, we're shooting the scenes from a different angle. We studied the choreography from the scenes, and then we interpreted and imagined what they could have been saying. So there was this fun mixture of real imitation and interpretation together that was really fun to play with. So when you watch the movie, you kind of are watching, even though they dubbed in, lines, the lines that you watch in the movie of Breathless, we're going, what could they really be saying to each other? Like, God, this guy's insane. Like, how's this movie going to turn out? What could they possibly have been saying to each other? Like, oh, I'm so cold, because they're not always saying especially when it's on their back. They could be saying anything. We shot it in Paris, in the streets of Paris, all over, and actually had the privilege of getting to shoot in actual places that they shot Breathless in. So that was very cool. It felt like kind of a seance sometimes. We were like bringing these people back. It was a really, really fun shoot. There was an entirely French cast and crew, and there was a feeling of like needing to get it right, needing for it to be great from every single person in a way I'm not sure I've ever felt. Like, not only did everyone want to show up and do their best work, but it was bigger than that. It was like this, because they love Godard so much and they love this film so much, and it bled into the experience. I mean, my feelings on New Wave have really changed since Rick first mentioned to me 11 years ago what he did. If I'm being very honest, I am always afraid of, maybe it's like younger sibling syndrome, or having not gone to college, basically having an 8th grade education because I started working young. I'm always afraid that I'm not in on something and I don't get it, and I'm not smart enough. And I feel like before I really began digging into new wave cinema, I felt like it was this club that maybe was too smart and too cool for me. It was for the real cinephiles. And what was so special about experiencing that art was the feeling of it being the total opposite. It was a bunch of people who felt like the art and the films that were being made didn't speak to them and wasn't authentic. And so they went out and made the movies that were living inside of them and had to make it their way. It's like the least pretentious, most beautiful, welcoming club. But my feeling about new wave has definitely changed over the last couple of years. I think it's a really cool time to have a movie about a young, ambitious artist who doesn't follow the status quo and is deeply authentic.
Moteur Raoul. Moteur Raoul. Moteur Raoul.
Moteur Raoul. Moteur.
I think all of it helps you get in character. Like you said, the costumes, the hair, the cigarettes. It's always better when you have something in your hand. I always am like, when I have to do a scene where there's nothing in my hand or there's nothing around me, I'm like, how many times are you, like even now I have my bag, I have my water, my phone right here, but there's always something near me that I can pick up and do. I'm like fidgeting with my, I love being able to always have a cigarette in my hand, but it changes the way that you obviously speak and the cadence, and it's all the pieces of the puzzle. I think my favorite look is when Belmondo comes to our house, and I'm wearing these like white silk trousers and a silk white blouse and a cuff. And that was a photo I had found of Jean from I don't know what, and I just loved it. And so we tried to, all the outfits, even if they weren't actually like what you wore to set, I tried to pull inspiration from other looks that I saw of hers. But I think the most profound and the most, like, I guess proud isn't the right word, but the most like, okay, this is, I feel connected. We were shooting the end scene where Belmondo's getting shot and I'm running after the car, and that weird run that she does. And it was pouring rain. Weather forecast said it was going to pour rain the rest of the day. We needed to finish it. We didn't have the permit for that street. We didn't get it. We weren't going to get it. We needed to get it. I said to Rick, hey, Jean's grave is about 2 blocks away. Do you want to go visit her and say hi? He said, oh, I'd love to. So we walked to the grave, and as we're approaching, the clouds start to part, and then the second we get to her tombstone, the sun comes out. And it stayed out for the rest of the day for us to finish the scene that we needed to shoot. And that's my favorite moment, I think, of the whole shoot.